Sup YouTube, we are back again. I know it's been a while, but there's been some new bait releases lately that have kind of caught my eye, and I want to talk about one of them in particular, 6 cents Panorama. There's been a lot of discussions about this bait online. There's been a lot of questions about it. I figured I was in on the drop. I got some on the drop, so I've been fishing them for the last couple weeks. I was gonna show everyone, kind of what my opinions are on the bait and how I think it might fit into your arsenal. This is not really an advertisement. This is kind of just like my first impressions, kind of trying to figure the bait out, experiment with it, which ways it likes to be rigged and all that other stuff. So I'm trying to really kind of provide some insight from someone who's actually used one of these. I know it's a really hot bait right now, so and a lot of people have got them. They don't really know how to rig them, and there's just a lot of confusion about it. So I've actually kind of put my time in. I kind of tried multiple different rigging options. I feel like I don't really have it completely dialed in yet, but I have an idea of how it likes to be fished. So there's 3 sizes right now. There's a 5, a 6, and a 9. Here's the 6. This one's been beat up. I've caught some fish on it, but it's a bait that's definitely pretty interesting. That there's not really many baits on the market that have this flat tail, especially with that thin profile. But the first thing I noticed when I took this thing out of the package is it's crazy thin. I mean, you could see how thin that thing is. I mean, it barely requires any movement at all to really have action in the water, which is pretty interesting. So the first way that I fished it was just weightless, kind of like this, just kind of rigged sideways. It does look pretty tall, so you can't really, it's gonna be kind of hard to kind of belly rig it, kind of like you would like a Citizen or something like that. So there's not really, this is all solid. There's no hollow space at all. It's just a solid hunk of plastic. So the best way that I've found to rig it is definitely sideways like that. But the first method that I tried was just weightless, kind of like you would fish like a fluke. I was kind of fishing it like a dying shad, and it looked good that way. I got some bites on it, but the one thing that I noticed about this bait is that it would flip over. So you would twitch it, and sometimes it would say it's kind of like going like this, right? You would twitch it, and sometimes it would roll over and flip on the other side. And to me, that's not really that natural at all. Like, you don't really see shad when they're dying just flip over like that, and then and it does, another issue with it that I noticed is it does get some line twists in it over time. If you're using fluoro, it definitely might be something to keep in mind. It definitely twists your line just because it can roll over like that. But I didn't really like it weightless. It didn't really feel right to me to fish it that way. It didn't really feel like the bait was that happy weightless. Like, it has some decent action, but it kind of just goes it kind of falls. It doesn't really dart off or anything crazy like that. So the second thing I did was I put a Texas rigged weight on it. I think it was like a 3/16 ounce, I want to say. 3/16 ounce Strike King tungsten, just your typical tungsten weight. And I fished it on the bottom, kind of like that. And the bait actually seemed a lot happier that way. It definitely seemed a lot more balanced, a lot less rolling with that. I actually caught some really good, nice fish on it, some 3 and 4 pounders on it. Nothing crazy yet, but it definitely gets bit. But I know a lot of people are going to think of this as a swim bait type bait, like you're gonna reel straight through the water columns, because it looks like a shad. But to me, this is a whole different bait. I'm kind of gonna explain some of that later in the video. But when I was Texas rigging it, it looks really good. Like, the bait looks a lot happier that way. There was still a little bit of that rolling every now and then, but it wasn't like as bad as like weightless rigged, where sometimes you would twitch it and it would literally just flip over like that. It definitely felt a lot better, but it still wasn't like perfect. So, and I like I said, I definitely caught some fish on it, just flipping it in some high percentage areas. But that was the second way I fished it. And this is all the 6.5. I hadn't really tested the 5.5 ounce. So the next way that I fished it is actually how you see it like this. It's on a power shot. And this is probably one of the best ways that I found that this thing looks. I feel like the weight kind of balances it and kind of keeps it from rolling over. It kind of prevents a lot of that rolling action that you might get with like a with the weightless rig or like even like the Texas rig. The bait definitely looked a lot better, and you could almost like suspend it kind of like that and just kind of shake your rod tip and get that tail going. It's a pretty cool presentation. Like, so if there's a bedding fish there, it might be a fantastic option for that. The bait looked a lot better on that, and there was times where I later took the 5.0 out, which is the smaller one. Here's a little size comparison for you. I'm not going to take these out of the box because they are really oily, but there's a little size comparison for you. The 5, to me, it's a small bait. Like, especially compared to, like, the 6.5. I was catching a lot of, like, pound and a half, 2-pound fish on this thing. It's not really going to get, like, the draw power or, like, any of the big... I feel like you might catch the 1.5-pound fish first on the 5.0 before the bigger fish might bite, and that might spook the bigger fish. So my favorite size so far has definitely been the 6.5, just because I feel like you get a bigger bite with it. Like, you may not get as many bites with it, but you might get bigger ones. So the second thing I did, like, after I started power shotting the 6.5 and it looked really good, was I started fishing the 5.0 on a nose hook with a drop shot. Just a regular, like, 1/8 ounce. Pretty much a standard what you would use for, like, your 6-inch robo worm. I would think I was using, like, an 1/8 ounce with a... let's see if I can find the hooks here. I tried the 2-aught hook. If you're going to nose hook the 6.5, I was throwing the 2-aught for that, and that looked to really fit the bait really well. The 1-aught was a little too small, 3-aught was a little too big. But I was using like a number, I think it was a number 1 or a 1-aught. I've kind of forgot. I think it was a number 1, something like that. I'll see if I can find it in here because I had like a little kit here set up. But I was fishing the 5.0 nose hooked, and it looked really good. Like it looked better than, you know, on a power shot or something like that. And I actually had an interesting experience. So I was fishing a high percentage area, and there was a bunch of fish school up in this one particular area. So I flipped it in there, and I'm shaking it. I get bit. It's like a 1.5 pound, 2-pound fish. I get the fish in. While I'm fighting it, the bait rips off the hook. The fish jumps, the bait rips off the hook, and another fish actually came in and ate the Panorama. Just, it's gone. So that was a pretty interesting experience. But the fish, I really think that these fish, they think that this thing is real. Like you'll know when you get bit on it. I feel like they actually are trying to eat it a lot of times, which it could just be from the bait's just incredibly realistic appearance. But the main complaints I have about this thing, other than, like, you know, the line twist and all that, is the durability. This thing kind of sucks with durability. It's almost like you're throwing a Japanese plastic on it. Like, this one is actually after I've glued it. Like, this whole nose was split open just from this, you know, this is a 6-aught Mustad grip pin. This thing was split open. I had to patch this thing up overnight just because I don't want to burn through all my panoramas. But this whole thing opened up. Like, the durability kind of sucks. Like, a lot of times I was getting like 1 or 2 fish out of a bait, which these are $7.99 a pack. You're spending like $4 for the 6.5, $4 a bait. That's pretty expensive, and it kind of adds up quick. That's my main complaint about it. I definitely keep some super glue in the boat or on your bag or wherever if you're gonna be using these like regularly, just because they do tear up. I do think that some of that is just it because it is such a thin profile. I mean, you could see. I mean, here's a 5-inch Yum Dinger for comparison. It's a thin bait. Like, this is a 6.5. This isn't even like the 5.0, which is like crazy thin as well. But yeah, you can see just how thin it is. But that's probably my main complaint about it. Other than that, like, in situations where, like, I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, it's a swim bait, it's a shad bait, it's a scope bait, whatever. For me, what this plays to me is like a shallow water shore fisherman. A lot of times this is a bait that if I'm not getting bit on a swim bait and I know those fish are there, I'm flipping this thing in there and I'm it's a bottom bait. It kind of imitates a shad, kind of pecking away at the bottom, you know, eating on some plankton or something. But that's kind of how I see it. It's really, for me, it's been a bait to give those shad eaters something different to see that they wouldn't normally see. Like, if they're not eating like a mid-column bait, like a 6-inch paddle tail or a 7-8-inch glide bait, you throw that Panorama in there, you might catch some of those fish that wouldn't bite. I've seen that happen a few times now, where these fish, you'd run a 6-inch bait past them, paddle tail, they're not biting it. You know that they're still there because they've been eating your thing like 2 or 3 days in a row. You throw the Panorama in there, sure enough, you start getting bit. I have seen that happen. I haven't really fully dialed it in yet, I feel like, but I have fished it enough to where I kind of have a general idea about it. My favorite way to fish it, like 100%, has been on one of the 6-cent shaky heads. To me, this is where this bait shines. You barely get any roll at all, like, if any. Line twist, it still is a problem, but it's just how it is with this bait. You're gonna get line twist if you're not using braid. But the bait, it definitely seemed like the balance was happy. The hook fits the bait really well. The durability was way better with it. I was getting 4, 5, 6, 7 fish on one 5.0, which is way better than I was getting nose hook. Like, I was getting 1 or 2 fish nose hooking it. That's definitely been my favorite way to fish it, just because you could kind of fish it like you would a jig or, you know, something on the bottom. Give those fish something different to look at. That's really been the main way I've been fishing it. I might pull up some pictures at the end of this video, or you could check my Instagram, kevinzap.fishing. Follow me on there. You could see, you know, some of the fish I've been catching on it. It's been a fun bait to fish. I really don't think that it's worth the hype, in my opinion. Like, I know, like, a lot of guys out in Texas were really, like, acting like this bait is a game changer. It's a game changer. I don't feel that way. I feel like it hasn't really gotten the response from the fish that I hoped it would. For me, like, I feel like a lot of these fish I could have caught on, like, a jig on the bottom, or maybe, like, another 6-inch swim bait or something like that. I feel like I could have caught some of those fish on it as well, but we'll just have to wait and see on that. But I do feel like it can get bit when other baits won't on certain occasions. You know, if you're fishing a lot of pressured fish that have seen baits day after day after day, I feel like this might be a good option for you. But that's basically like a quick rundown of kind of like my first impressions of it. Another thing that I wanted to mention is, if you rig it on a Texas rig, you can get some insane action out of it. I know there's been some people fishing that like a flutter spoon or something like that, and I'm fishing shallow water, so I wasn't really able to like really see a lot of that stuff happen. But if you really twitch it like you would a flutter spoon, you can get that thing to kind of dart off, and it's pretty unpredictable. It goes in all different directions. It's pretty cool. I haven't really got it to work personally, just because I'm fishing a lot of shallow water, but that's kind of, like I said, it's pretty much my quick rundown of it. Hopefully it clears up some of the confusion. I know a lot of people have been using this bait, and a lot of people own this bait, and they're not really sure how they should rig it. For me, I'd say get some shaky heads, get some power shots, this is a 1/4 ounce drop shot weight with the 6/0 hook. Get some of these, maybe nose hook it. You can run it. Like, I know I was doing this for a little bit, but if you kind of shake your rod like a swim jig when you're nose hooking the 5, it kind of you can level it out and almost kind of swim it through the water column. I haven't really got it to work that consistently, but it's just another option for the bait. But for me, it's going to be the shaky heads and the drop shots. That's definitely the 2 best ways that I found that it works. The fish definitely seem to respond to those ways better. I feel like it just looks more natural to them. But hopefully that helps clear it out. If you got any more questions, leave them down in the comments. Again, this isn't like an advertisement. This is just kind of like a rundown of the ways that I've found to rig it best, and kind of how I've been fishing it, and hopefully it'll clear out some of the confusion. Like I said, I don't got nothing with 6 cents. I do like some of their products, but I'm not going to act like this bait is a game changer or anything. It can be, you know, in the right hands, but I definitely feel like there's definitely like a lot more things you could do with this bait than you can a lot of other baits. You could kind of suspend it in the water column, especially if you're using like live scope or something. You could suspend it, you could let it fall. It's definitely a very unique bait, you know, and that's really what caught my eye, is the fish probably haven't seen something this realistic, which is pretty interesting. But anyway, give me a follow on Instagram at kevinzap.fishing. If you had any questions, leave them in the comments. I'll get to them, but that's pretty much it. See you later.